Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday morning service at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laguna Beach. My name is Pamela Flodman, and I will be serving as your worship associate for today. We are delighted that you have chosen to join us this morning, either here in the fellowship building or virtually by Zoom. It really is a joy for us to have so many ways in which we can join together. Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Unitarian Universalist church, a chalice is lit. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith. If you have joined us this morning by Zoom, I invite you to light a chalice within your home, as Dara lights the chalice for us here at UUFLB. Our chalice lighting words today are from the Reverend Christine Robinson, who served for 29 years as the senior minister of the First Unitarian Church in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. So I want to thank Dara for lighting our chalice this morning. I really love the image from the chalice lighting words of a beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning. In this time of deep sorrow and indeed, I think, anger at the horrific images and the news that we are seeing from Ukraine, it feels especially important to me that we come together to light our beacon of hope and then find ways to use the power that we have together as a community to make a difference. At UUFLB, we are a welcoming congregation. Whatever has brought you here this morning, we welcome you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and moral beings. I would like this morning to invite those of you who are here in the sanctuary to come forward, if you wish, at any point during the service, to light a candle in front of joy or of sorrow or of remembrance. And I want to give many thanks this morning to the incredible team of individuals here at UUFLB who work together each week to create opportunities for us to worship together and to be together in community. It really does amaze me how many individuals quietly step up to take care of the tasks which need to be done. And so I am grateful to all for your worship committee, the board, the technical team, Candy and Paul, who make the building ready each morning. Really connecting together with each other is the way in which we build community as a strong base from which we can go out and make a difference in the world. And although there are clearly so many committed hands working together, I know there are also more opportunities. There's always more to be done. So if you are looking for a way to become more involved, please reach out and we'll find a way to integrate your efforts. Welcome to all. It is good to be together this morning in all of the ways that we can join together in worship. On the slide that Dawn will put up for us next is a list of the upcoming services that are coming during the rest of the month of March. Next week, on March 13th, we will be welcoming back to UUFLB John Bloom Ramirez, who has returned. Oh, goodness sakes, I've got them backwards. Goodness sakes, thank you. Next week, we are delighted that Glenna Matthews will be joining us, and Glenna will be leading a service for us which is focused on the four mothers of our UU faith. And those of you who've heard Glenna speak before know that this is something not to be missed. So I hope that you can join us with Glenna Matthews next week. And then on March 20th, we will be welcoming back to UUFLB John Bloom Ramirez, who will be joining us in person here at the Fellowship Building for a service entitled Metamorphosis. And since I know we're all individually in a process of change and we're incorporating change within our UUFLB community, I think this will be a valuable service for all of us. On March 27th, our Social Justice Sunday will focus on water justice and the work of the South Coast Water District. So many interesting upcoming services and a great example this morning of how we work together. Thank you for those of you who helped me get the dates in the right order this morning. Following today's service, I hope that you have time to stay for a bit and connect with each other, both those of you who are here in the Fellowship Building and also our attendees on Zoom during our virtual cafe. We'll have the laptop up at the front of the Fellowship Building here set up so that you can come by and say hello to our attendees on Zoom. On this Sunday morning, our service is entitled Take Me to the River. And we are so fortunate this morning to welcome QuianaDenae Perkins to our UUFLB pulpit. QuianaDenae is a first-year seminarian at Starr King School for the Ministry and a UU ministerial aspirant. Most recently, she served UU of Ann Arbor in a coordinator role. And in fact, she's joining us this morning from Ann Arbor. She is the mother of 2 busy teens. She loves nature walks and bird watching. And today here in Southern California, at least, it is a beautiful day for doing both. QuianaDenae's ministry centers on pastoral care, activism, and collective liberation. We started our service this morning with the amazing music of Sweet Honey in the Rock, a recording of the spiritual Wade in the Water, again, incorporating their amazing voices and the signing that accompanies that video. QuianaDenae has built this morning's service around music, which helps us to explore the deep meaning and power of water in our lives. The water from which we come, the water to which we are always returning as we rediscover ourselves and our power to make a difference in a troubled world. So welcome, QuianaDenae. We are grateful that you have joined us this morning.
Oh, my heart, that introduction was just made me tender, like my eyes got a little watery. So thank you for that, Pam. As we continue our time together, friends, let's ease our bodies and our spirits and get ready for fellowship and some much needed spiritual soothing after a week of being who we are right now. I offer these words from Toni Morrison, who is a prophet in her own way, in her own right. It's from the book Beloved. After situating herself on a huge flat-sided rock, baby Suggs bowed her head and prayed silently. The company watched from the trees. They knew she was ready when she put down her stick. They shouted. Then she shouted, "Let the children come!" And they ran from the trees towards her. "Let your mothers hear you laugh," she told them, and the woods rang. The adults looked on and could not help but smiling. Then, "Let the grown men come," as she shouted, and they stepped out one by one from among the ring of trees. "Let your wives and children see you dance," she told them, and the ground life shuddered under their feet. Finally, she called the women to her. "Cry," she told them, "for the living, for the dead, just cry." And without hesitation, the eyes of the women let loose. It started that way, laughing children, dancing men, crying women, and then it got all mixed up. Women stopped crying and started dancing. Men sat down and cried. Children danced. Women laughed. Children cried until exhausted and writhen. All and each lay about the clearing, damp and grasping for breath. In the silence that followed, baby Suggs Holy offered up to them her great big heart. She did not tell them to clean up their lives and to go on and sin no more. She did not tell them they were blessed of the earth, inheriting its meek or its glory bound pure. She told them that the only grace they have was the grace they could imagine, that if they could not see it, they would not have it. Here, she said, in this here place, we are flesh, flesh that weeps, laughs, flesh that dances on bare feet on grass. Love it hard.
Let us take a moment now to remind ourselves why we come together as a community. I invite you to read these words together when and if it feels right for you. And I invite you to listen carefully to the meaning behind the words. If you wish and you're on Zoom, please unmute your microphone. It really is so powerful when we can join our voices together. The words of the unison affirmation are on your screens, and please join me in reading. May we be
reminded here
of our
highest aspirations
and
and inspired to bring our gifts of love
and
and
service
service
altar
to the altar of
humanity.
humanity.
May
May
we
we know
once
once again
we are
that we are
we're
not
not
isolated
beings,
but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe,
to the
to
universe,
this community, and to each other.
and to
each other.
So this morning, we have a story that QuianaDenae has chosen for us for our time for all ages. And I'm hoping, I see we have a visitor who is a child interested, I think, in coming up front so we can read the story together. So we'll be trying something different as we can bring this over to Zoom. So let's just give us a minute to get situated here so we can all share our story. Going to test and see, is this coming through okay? Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome. Good morning. How are you this morning, Zena? Good. It's good to see you. So we have a story that QuianaDenae picked for us this morning. Are you ready? Okay. Once upon a time, there were two rivers, and they were flowing side by side. And both of the rivers liked to argue about who was best. The water in my river is better than the water in your river, said one. No, the water in my river is better than the water in your river, said the other. So the two rivers would flow along all day arguing about which river was the best, and both were quite sure they were the greatest. I think I've heard arguments like that before. You ever heard rivers arguing with each other? No. Doesn't my water make a joyful sound as it runs over the smooth, polished pebbles on my bottom? And look at the way the sun reflects off the ripples and eddies that form around granite boulders at my edge. These things are so beautiful. Surely I am the best river, said the first. The other river replied, but look at all the fish that swim in my clear, cool water. And have you heard the frogs singing at night? Ribbit, ribbit. They live in the reeds. Did you? Can you make a frog noise? Yep, there you go. The frogs live in the reeds and the lilies that grow at my banks. I am home to so many wonderful creatures. Surely I must be the very best river. And the two continued to argue until one day something strange and unexpected happened. The rivers rounded a bend, slid down a small falls and suddenly saw that they were flowing towards something much bigger and greater than themselves. And up ahead were big crashing waves and water everywhere as far as they could see. So they continued to rush faster and faster until the water from both rivers churned together into the vast, enormous ocean. And then a sound came down from the sky. It came from a cloud that chuckled for a moment and then said, "Now you see how foolish you have been arguing about who is best. There is no highest or lowest. There is no greatest or least. All things are one, and all are joined together like rivers in the sea." Yay! Thank you for giving us sound effects for the story, Zena. Okay, so I think we can have some time to listen to the service and maybe you can draw. Way to play with too, but maybe. Okay, so now I think we just need to rearrange the video so that it's now focusing on the podium rather than on the steps. I'll give our AV team a minute to get settled. There we go. Okay. Yay. I hope we have lots more opportunities to have us time for all ages and a story that hopefully is going to go across to our Zoom attendees as well as to those here in the building. But for today now, we have come to a time in our service to briefly share the important events that have touched our lives in the past week. Our joys, when shared, are magnified. And when we share our sorrows, we can provide the support and care that are vital for all of us here in community. So during this time of sharing our joys and concerns, we will pause the recording of the service to our offertory period. It is as much a blessing to be able to give as it is to receive. In this self-governing, self-sustaining community, we recognize that it is our responsibility to do both well. So give what you will during this time of offering, for we are a generous people. Will show for
Hi, friends.
So please join us now in singing to each other words of sincere gratitude. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. If you wish and you're in the fellowship building, please stand and form a circle so that we can face each other and sing to each other. Stand as you're comfortable and join in singing.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Friends, I invite you to join me for a small period of meditation. I will share some words from Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmer, and then we'll have a period of silence that will end with the ringing of a bell. Among the Potawatomi people, women are keepers of water. We carry the sacred water to ceremonies and act on its behalf. Women have a natural bond with water because we are both life bearers, my sister said. We carry our babies in a perpetual pond, and they come forth into the world on a wave of water. It is our responsibility to safeguard the water for all of our relations. Being a good caretaker includes caretaking the water. I believe we'll be hearing a musical selection. Morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name again is QuianaDenae Perkins, and I am physically in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but my heart is definitely in Laguna Beach. Before I begin this sermon, I want to call my comrades, elders, and ancestors into this space, making it holy, making it a temporary home. As we get started, I want to remind you of the words I shared with your community in advance of my reflection. You'll hear them again, and I want to make sure they're easy to find, to distinguish as we journey forward. Take me to the river. I came here by way of water. You did too. At some point, I moved away, and then now, as I grow into wisdom, I find myself coming back to a new river with a new me. Come learn more about how I am making my way back to the river. Let us begin our journey together. 1, I came here by way of water. You did too. I don't remember being in my mother's womb. I wonder if anyone remembers that sacred time, but I stopped short of a Google search because something tells me I will fall down an internet conspiracy rabbit hole. So for my version of events, we don't remember. That means that I get to play in the what if. What was it like to be waterside? What was it like to be a mer person? What was here before now? I assume there was peace in the staying and the pulling of going. That is, until going was easier than staying, and Then without preamble, we know the water is no longer home. We come into the light. We come landslide. This is the first time we see. This is the first time we are seen. This is the first time our skin is touched, the first time we push air through our lungs, starting a whole new cycle of life. 2, at some point I moved away, and then now, as I grow into wisdom, I find myself coming back. The first time I attended a UUAA church, a UU church, sorry, was in Minneapolis, 2000. I worked for the summer youth program, but was interested in learning more about the UU faith. That first Sunday, I was nervous at best. I was guarded and stayed back. Being a Black person in a predominantly white space comes with its own protective tasks. When you add in the complexity of church, attending required that I was both present to my faith experience and on defense for the foolishness that we now call micro and macro aggressions. See, my experiences of racism are older than the beautiful, nuanced language we have generated to talk about racism. I was a VISTOR, that was my name. I was a visitor. I did not plan to stay or get comfortable, but I did. And I went back many times. In fact, when I moved from Minnesota to Michigan, I made the local UU church my faith home. The first time I saw, the first time I was seen, the first time my spiritual heart felt tended, the first time I was spiritually vulnerable, starting a whole new cycle of life. 3, to a new river with a new me. I am making my way back to the river. Every waterway starts with a drop of water. The Mississippi starts at a place that you could walk with 10 steps down. Thank you, Indigo Girls, for that information. No, really though, it does start in Minnesota at the Itasca State Park. A crack in the land, an urgency racing from the unknown toward the unknowable, carving a path, befriending roots, smoothing rocks along its way, creating banks and shorelines, curving around island masses, adapting as it goes, unafraid of sharp turns, hidden underground routes, or to drop into cascading falls. The trickle becomes a creek, which gathers into a pond, which is a type of rest. And that pond, it wakes from an early spring thaw, forging on to become a stream, which winds into a lake, which is also a kind of rest and preparation for the final rush to meet the sea. The first time we see something greater than ourselves, the first time we experience the power of collective liberation, the first time we are beloved community, starting a whole new cycle of life. I cannot speak for you, but for me, March 13th, 2020, COVID became real. The CDC had come in, information had come in slow in waves until it crested into a global pandemic. The world shifted, and I, like many of you, found myself in a frozen lake of feelings, experiencing emotional and spiritual paralysis. What was happening? What were we supposed to do? So much has happened in such a short amount of time. We are rounding into the third March of COVID, 2020, 2021, and 2022. I am saying them all out loud for my own grounding. I find myself coming back to the river with a new me, with a new me, with a new me. I am wondering what is on the other side of a global pandemic. I am asking, who will I be? How do I, in the container I call QuianaDenae, which is a complex configuration of tributaries joined to be one, move to the next? As a ministerial aspirant, I am asking, who will we be? How do we, in the container we call Unitarian Universalist faith, which is rooted in the 7 principles and rushing toward an 8th in a move that rivals Niagara, how do we practice spiritual vulnerability? How do we create a narrative of safety and thriving in a pandemic and late stage capitalism, in a culture that thrives off patriarchy, white supremacy, and religious nationalism? How do we move past fear? How do we recenter covenant and connection? My heart hears, what if radical welcome, stewardship, and belonging were our compass rose headings? What if they, radical welcome, stewardship, and belonging, need to be integral in the how we start a whole new cycle of life? Follow me, I'll be your river, I'll do the running for you. 1, radical welcome. Such a heavy, nuanced term that we love in Unitarian Universalism. We use it like it's common language, but the truth is radical welcome is an emerging word and way of being. I won't hold us to a hard definition, but I will offer some consistent themes. Radical welcome seems to be a beautiful mixture of spiritual hospitality, intentional connection, centering, D or re, depending on where you stand in the equation, with the goal of membership, with the goal of collective wholeness. It is not a call to assimilate or be incorporated. It is a call to incarnate, to become fully immersed. Radical welcome is not an invitation to be in shared space. The door is open. You can come in. It is not a call to include those who are willing to be in your shared space. I left the door open and I'm glad you came in. Radical welcome is a demand that we allow new energy to be incorporated and transformational. I am glad we built this door and have no fear we will build it again and again and again for all of those who wish to enter. Follow me, I'll be your river, 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 river. 2, stewardship. I used to think that stewardship was a fancy way to say money. I thought it was passing the hat or annual giving done by members. I know churches need money, but money was not my ministry, so I did not pay attention. That wasn't until someone suggested we have a volunteer drive during our stewarding campaign. This confused me, so I decided for this topic, a Google search was safe. I found a definition of stewardship: the office, duties, and obligations of a steward, the conducting, supervising, or managing of something, especially the careful and responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. This made me pause. This definition had nothing to do with money, and I was drawn to the intense action words of duty and obligation. As time went on, I started to see that volunteering is a kind of equity stewardship. But because I'm making up terms, I'm going to loosely define that as the work, labor, time, and non-monetary contributions that sustain a community. I can see how financial and equity stewardship work in concert, ebbing and flowing with respect for each other. Now, I want to be clear so nobody comes at me later. We need money. We absolutely do. Please give as you are able, and do so knowing that on the other end, there is somebody doing the required equity stewardship of sorting, accounting, documenting, and making decisions about how it is spent, saved, and managed. We need both. It's a both and equation. Do you recall the first time you entered a UU church? What stuck from that first visit? What made you come back? How did you shift from visitor into regular? What were the behaviors? Was it something as simple as having a preferred seat or a favorite coffee cup? What made you ask, could this be my faith home? What made the response, yes? Reflect on your community and ask, are you stewarding the building? Are you stewarding the connections and the relationships with staff, ministers, non-paid super volunteers, fellow attendees? Ask yourself, are you carefully and responsibly managing the resources that have been entrusted to you? Follow me, I'll be a river, I'll do the running for you. 3, belonging. When they were younger, I would ask my children if they were Black, and they would reflexively say yes. But then as time went on, I asked, how do you know you're Black? And we spent time exploring race and connection and lineage and history and heritage. And they were able to say, I know I'm Black because you're my mom, because my skin, my hair, our traditions, our community. And as they get older, 14 and 11, we talk about what it means to be Black in some tender and nuanced ways. How to plan for a day at the beauty shop, how to arrive at the barbershop when they open to avoid the line, how to not get killed at a traffic stop, in the neighborhood, at the park, at the bodega, or in their bed on a no-knock warrant at the wrong address. As a Black mom, I must teach my kids all and both. As a parent, I must create a narrative of safety and thriving. In a pandemic and late stage capitalism, in a culture that thrives off patriarchy, white supremacy, and religious nationalism. And it starts with making sure they know what it means to be Black. Anything less is a disservice to them. They need to know the edge of where they start and where they stop. They need to know when the water is no longer safe and when they need to seek the safety of the shore. How do you know you are UU? How do you know that these are your people? When you hear the words of the chalice lighting, is that what you say? Is that what they say? Or is that what we say? What are your indicators of belonging? Stay with me now. We are just rounding the river bend, friends. Our desire to be in fellowship can feel like an urgency, racing from the unknown to the unknowable. Finding our path may look like staying to help with chairs or volunteering to be the note taker at a meeting. Carving out a way may consist of co-leading a new formed team or leading a march for reproductive rights in your community. We have to be ready to adapt, unafraid of sharp turns, hidden underground routes, or to drop into cascading falls. In this way, belonging is a form of bravery. I'll be your river. We are arriving at a new river. What if UU congregations were radically welcoming? Each person who comes in is fully supported to become. What if we had a vibrant stewardship plan that included finances and equity? What if each person shared their divine gifts in service to the whole? What if the goal was belonging, not attendance, not membership, but to hold people in the most tender place of their longing? I came here by way of water. You did too. As I grow into wisdom, I find myself coming back to a new river with a new me. I am making my way back to the river. The first time we see, we are seen. The first time our skin is touched, the first time we push air through our lungs, my heart, my spiritual path felt tended, and I was spiritually vulnerable. There is something greater than ourselves. It is collective liberation. And when it comes, we are beloved community. My friends, I believe this is how we get to the sea, starting a whole new cycle of life. Ashe and amen.
Our closing hymn this morning is number 1064, Blue Boat Home. The words will be in the chat, and it's in the teal hymnal if you're here in the fellowship building. So please join Carole by singing along to Blue Boat Home.
Standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor, not port have I known. My universe is the ocean I drown, and the earth is my blue sun, my sail, and moon, my brother, as I climb the starry sea, leading over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companion. Only keep preparing our souls, making our way by the lights of our heavens in the beautiful blue I give thanks to the waves unfolding me, hear the great winds surging beyond, reach the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbored nor words have I known.
Now is the time for us to extinguish the chalice at UUFLB and within our homes. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I want to offer the words of benediction. These come from a book called Undrowned: Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals, Alexis Pauline Gubbs. Out here on the ocean, mothering is an emergent strategy. Consider the white-bellied, short-snouted dolphins who travel in groups of 100, sometimes 1,000. Lesson 1, roll deep, and welcome several other species of dolphins and whales to swim and eat in community. Lesson 2, better together. Though they swim across the entire planet, no scientist, or no one willing to tell a Western scientist, saw one alive until 1971. In fact, it seems there was a coordinated movement to be recognized because there were several different first sightings of the species on different parts of the planet, all somehow in 1971. Lesson 3, we can be seen on our own terms. The only requirements to be a part of this massive oceanic family are that you've got to be willing to dive deep because they eat 1,000 feet below the surface. Lesson 4, do your depth work. And flock because they collectively change direction they change directions abruptly to keep humans from following them and also move thousands of miles to stay current with the ocean. Lesson 5, be ready to transform. Gratitude to my oceans of love, to my expansive family in all directions, my mothers of all genders, ages, and times. Thank you for nourishing me and holding me accountable in more ways than I can name.
Please join me, everyone, in singing Let There Be Peace on Earth. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, we are family. Let us walk with each other, perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now.